So if you get the voice, we're recording so that you'll be able to watch this back, and we'll provide you the slides as well.
So hi everyone, I'm Siobhan. I'm actually new to Communitya and it's my first time running this kind of program. So I'm pretty excited and nervous, but welcome everyone to this Mentee Welcome workshop. And we'll be going through some general housekeeping first, which is like, I assume a lot of people have seen this stuff before, like before you unmute and you want to say something, raise your hand on the Zoom function. And you can also use the chat, like how Tiffany has been using the chat. And if you want to ask questions anonymously, you can direct message Will in the Zoom chat. And feel free to use reactions creatively to show us how you're feeling. Yeah, so keep the fun going. So we'll just go into a bit about Communitya. You might have heard a bit about us, but it's kind of confusing. Like when I first started, I was super confused. But anyway, Communitya runs corporate volunteering programs, and they have an online platform for skilled volunteers. And so Communitya is just like a social enterprise, and we aim to connect skilled volunteers and not-for-profits to maximize impact together. Yeah. Now this program is going to focus on these two SDG goals, sustainable development goals, so quality education and decent work and economic growth. So we're hoping to achieve like these two goals through this program, because this program is designed to help students get their foot in the door in their industry, because COVID has made these kinds of opportunities for work and internships more difficult. And this mentoring program kind of helps you transition between like pre-graduation, graduation, and then getting a job a bit smoother, and also helps you expand your network and your opportunities. I know I'm low-key awkward in networking events, but you know, I think doing mentoring with a stranger who's got a lot of advice to give is really eye-opening and makes you more comfortable to like jump into a networking environment. So basically there's two streams in this program. There's a mentoring program and then there's a volunteering. So these two streams connect and give you the same outcome. So volunteering will help you build skills and experience and help you bring these skills into your new job, hopefully in the future, and add to your resume. And then the mentoring helps you connect with experts in the industry, which can help you feel more prepared to enter the workforce and make a social impact in the workplace in your future career. So I'll pass it on to Alex to introduce herself and AVI.
Thanks a lot, Siobhan, and hi everyone. Nice to have you here this afternoon. So my name is Alex. I'm the student program manager at AVI, and AVI has been collaborating with Communitya on this great mentoring and volunteering program. So we're really happy to welcome you on this new Pathway to Employment edition. So I'll just start by telling you a bit more about AVI. So we've been a leader in international development for a bit over 70 years now. We credited for sending the first international volunteers overseas 70 years ago. You might have heard about us through the Australian Volunteers Program that we manage on behalf of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. And so our approach to international development is to bring people, knowledge, skills together to have an impact and to lead to building and strengthening locally led capacities. That's really where our focus is. We manage a number of programs, both domestically and internationally. In particular, we work with Australian universities offering different services around student mobility, and in particular, the opportunities for students to volunteer overseas. Next slide, please, Sean, or Will. So I'm just going to tell you a bit more about the history behind AVI. So 70 years ago, as I mentioned, we sent the first international volunteer. So Herb Feith was a student at the University of Melbourne. And at the time, Indonesia was going was becoming an independent country, and they were going through a transition phase, and they called for support. So Herb was sent to work as a translator for the Ministry of Information. And he went there as a technical expert. He was recently graduated, and the idea was really to support the transition to help build local capacities. But he didn't just go to Indonesia as an expert. His vision of things was that he had as much to learn as what he had to bring to the table in this experience of volunteering overseas. So he went there with really an open mind, and he was really open to learning from the community he was working with. So he really immersed himself in Indonesian culture. So unlike his peers expatriate who were going at the local international cafe and everything, he was eating with his host families, with the community, and spending time to really trying to understand their culture, their needs, so that he could share his skills and learn as much. I think why I wanted to share about this story, that it's relevant in that the journey you're about to embark on, particularly the mentoring part of your Pathway to Employment program, is really an opportunity for you to learn, but also to share your existing experience. So we want you to approach it with an open mind, and just put yourself out there. And be prepared to receive and to share. It's all about shared respect, shared understanding, taking an interest in someone else's life and someone else's career, so that you can learn new skills, know and benefit from their experience, but also share about yours. Next slide, please. So today, as we are starting with this workshop, it marks the start of what we call the engage phase that you can see on this little chart here. So we're just preparing you, helping you to understand what's going to happen through the next 12 weeks or so. So the first step is that we have prepared some e-learnings that to help you really prepare for that experience. It's not mandatory, but we strongly encourage you to complete the e-learning. It's not going to take long, maximum 20 to 30 minutes. And that's really going to give you an idea of what it means to be a mentee, and provide you with some practical tips and tools that you can use throughout your journey. We also would like to invite you to spend some time to think about why it is important for you to participate in that program. What do you expect from the experience? What are you bringing to the table? What do you want to get out of it? If you start thinking about how you're going to approach all of this, I think that's really where you're going to make the most of it. And as mentioned, it is very much a two-way street. So both mentors and mentees really gain what they give through this experience. We're going to have a workshop with the mentors as well, and we're also going to emphasize on these aspects of what mentoring particularly is. Next slide, please. So what can you expect more practically? So next week, we're going to pair you with your mentor. So once you've been allocated a mentor, you'll be notified, obviously, and you'll start the 10 weeks journey that we call the emerge phase. So phase 3 here on the little chart. So AVI and community will touch base regularly with you and with your mentor to see how things are going. And we really encourage you to be proactive and have a chat with us. If there's anything, any questions you might have, any feedback you would like to share, is very welcome. So we do encourage you to reach out should you need any support from us. Next slide, please. So once you've been paired with a mentor, you'll receive an email from Will, and there's one thing that we ask you to do that is mandatory, is to set up the mentoring agreement with your mentor. So this is a little bit of a contract with your mentor, just to set some expectations. So we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to discuss how that's going to work for both of you. So think about how often you're going to meet. how are you going to meet? Are you going to meet in person at the local cafe? Are you going to meet via Zoom? Is it going to be a phone call? Whatever works best for you both. Do you agree to be contacted outside of the set meeting time that you've allocated? Or does your mentor agree to be contacted outside of these hours? Should you have any question or comment or any need for advice, that sort of thing. So that's all the type of really practical things that this agreement will enable you to discuss and set up. The document will be in the community platform, and we'll share a bit more information on that in a minute, but you'll have access to all of this. The setting up the agreement is also the opportunity to set up your goals. So as I mentioned, we invite you to start thinking about what you want to get from this experience. So think as well about the goals. What are you trying to achieve? Siobhan has talked about all of the different opportunities that this experience is bringing to the table. So it can be developing your network, it can be working on your resume, it can be more developing some soft skills that you would like to work on with your mentor. It can be a lot of different things depending on your personal circumstances and what you're trying to achieve. So have a think about that so that you're able to articulate them in the agreement. Next slide, please. So weekly, you're going to meet with your mentor and you're going to have a chat. So the discussions you're having with your mentor is really up to you and them, and it depends on what you're trying to achieve and to get from that experience. But to help you with that, we've also developed some prompts every week that you'll have access to in the community platform. So this can be some questions or resources that you can have a look at, and your mentors will have the same. And that can help just guide the discussions if you're not too sure what you want to talk about. There are some questions to prompt you to think about a particular topic. So for instance, you can see here that in week 3, we're talking about vulnerability and what it means to put yourself in a vulnerable positions, what it allows you to achieve. So these are the type of resources that we're putting there. There's often links to articles or videos or podcasts, things like that. So you will have access to that. And you also have access to the whole 12 weeks in advance, so that it gives you enough time as well to prepare for the upcoming weeks, and you don't need to wait for the last minute. You have access to all the resources at once so that you can manage your own time. Next slide, please. So here are just a couple of thoughts around what it means to be a good mentee, and you'll have your own view on that, but based on the previous pathway to employment cohorts that we've guided through the process, we just wanted to highlight a few aspects that we think are important. So the first thing is that we encourage you to be prepared to be vulnerable. Just be prepared to share about your personal life, your personal experience. Have the courage to open up. So we appreciate that sometimes it's not easy to take that path, but I think that's where you're going to get the most out of it. If you're really open and prepared to be challenged, prepare to be sometimes put in uncomfortable positions, because maybe your mentor is going to ask you questions or make you think about how you would react in certain circumstances, and you've never done that, or you've done it before and it didn't go well and you're not really ready to do that again. That's exactly why mentoring is a great exercise. It's really to helping you get more comfortable, get prepared for the next time that these situations occur. So just be open and be ready to share about yourself. The second aspect is a really practical one. Just be proactive, and your time is really precious. You have a lot on with your studies, and some of you might be working at the same time, but so is your mentor's time. So there are busy professionals, quite often with families, and they're giving their time to really share their experience and support you through your own journey. So just be proactive and make sure that if you can't make it to your appointment, give them a heads up and let them know, so that they don't show up and they're just waiting for you and nothing happens. And I think an important aspect is also to be prepared for your next sessions. That's where you'll get the most of your discussions and your time with your mentor. So it can be going through the little prompts topics that are available on the community platform and doing some reflection about that, or it can be based on discussion that you had in the previous session with your mentor or some exercises that they've given you. So just make sure you come prepared to your session. And just I think to conclude on this, the mentees that we've seen being the most successful are the ones who really have put some thoughts into that process. They've taken the time to reflect between one session to the other. So yeah, just make sure that you commit to it and you do take the time that it needs to make the most of the mentorship. And I think I'll hand over to Siobhan and Will to walk you through the community platform now.
Thanks so much, Alex. Yes, AVI have a lot of experience in mentoring, and we're really grateful that they've put together the weekly content, and you'll be able to see not just the content that will help prompt you to think about your career path and what it looks like to enter the workplace, and content to facilitate those conversations with your mentor. But you'll also receive a little bit of e-learning, some chances to think further about how to be a good mentee, but also start thinking about what are you going to get out of this mentoring program? Because that's really what we've seen is the biggest difference between someone who gets a lot of value or someone who only gets a little bit of value. Depends on you and how clear you are on what your goals are, how you want to direct the mentoring conversations. If you're clear on your goals and how you want to grow, then your mentor can really speak into that, provide examples, finds people to come into those conversations as well. So really be thinking about that over the next week as we train the mentors and start to match them with you. Have a think about what your goals are and what you want to get out of this program. But thanks so much for that, Alex. We're going to talk a little bit about the platform. So we do have the community platform. So you'll be provided with a link to access this after the session. It'll actually come tomorrow. We won't be able to send it out right after this session, but it'll come out tomorrow. And that's where you'll be able to see that weekly content. But you'll be asked to create an account on community, and we'll actually use this for both the mentoring component and the volunteering component. So this is a pretty important step. We'll include a little bit of information about to make sure you're aware of how to do that in the email. But you'll be setting up on the platform. You'll receive an email with a link, and that'll be your invitation to the Flindersia student community. So we've been running this program for just over a year now, and every cohort gets named after some Australian flora. Has anyone ever even heard of this plant or tree?
I had to Google it, Will.
I studied biology and I've never heard of it.
Either Siobhan studied biology and hasn't heard of it. So I don't know if we have any other biologists in the room. I haven't checked what everyone's studying, but I've become a biologist through this program just by discovering new Australian native names. Anyways, there's actually a picture of it in your community, which you'll get to see. It's quite lovely. Anyways, that's not why we're here, is it? Flindersia community, you'll be invited to that. So you'll have to enter your emails and the usual first name, last name, password. But there'll also be some more specific questions because we are specifically a volunteering platform. That's what we do. We run volunteering programs. So as you sign up, you'll be asked, what skills do you have and what causes are you passionate about? So with volunteering, we want you to use your skills to support a not-for-profit. So the first question, you'll be able to scroll through, but this isn't like a LinkedIn profile. So you don't have to be like, well, if someone asks me to prove if I have these skills, I don't know what I would show. You can even say, if this is what you're studying, so maybe you say, I'm not qualified in accounting yet, but I'm studying accounting. That's where I'm going. This is just to give an indication of the types of volunteering experiences you'd be interested in. Helps us with our algorithms and helps us recommend volunteering experiences to you. So answer that just to the best of your ability. You can change it later as well. You're always able to update your profile once you're on the platform. Just quickly, what are your skills and what causes are you interested in? No wrong answers there. Just let us know. It'll be kind of like disability or climate action. It gives some broad causes that you can say that you're particularly passionate about. You can click all of them if you're passionate about everything. That's totally fine too. So you'll be signing up and then you'll land. Oh, here it is. It's quite a nice little tree. It's got lovely flowers. So I don't know if from that image I could like look at a tree and say that's.
It looks like it'll make me sneeze.
Yeah, I can tell you my hay fever does not like the Flindersia tree, but that's okay. So you have your student community. The mentors will be gathering in a very similar community for mentors. And this is just for you to communicate and look at your content. So you'll have this weekly mentoring content. It'll just have some simple instructions, but basically all 12 weeks of content are posted right at the start. So you'll be able to scroll through. This is where the recording of the welcome workshop will be. So you'll be able to view that and watch it back. Review what we've talked about today. We actually have full attendance, which is, I think, unheard of. I don't think we've ever had that in a student cohort. So just give yourselves a little clap. Like, thank you very much. We really appreciate you all and your time. So thank you.
Students are the best.
For the best. Yeah, so true. Thank you, everyone. I've lost my train of thought just thinking about how great you guys are. But we're here, so you can review this. You can look back at the content and you'll be able to see it's very clear. Week 1, week 2, there's kind of a show all, so you can keep scrolling all the way to week 11. So there's kind of 10 weeks of real content. You'll be able to access all of them, and there'll be TED Talks, there'll be little things to look at or read, or articles to read. You can look at them all in advance. We'd definitely recommend looking at them before you catch up with your mentor. So just have each week before you catch up with your mentor, have a look and discuss with your mentor how exactly you want to use them. Because we've provided these to help inform and provide a foundation to your conversations. But like I said, we would much rather you focus on your goals than to focus on this content. This is not personalized for you. These are 10 weeks of content that we think would help you consider your career path and what will prepare you for the workplace. But think about your goals. If your goal is to do interview skills, there's no topic here that says interview skills. So you can use this to inform that discussion, maybe talk about values and what jobs you're going to apply for, and the next week go into interview skills. But we want you to work with your mentor to discuss your goals. What are you going to work on? And then use these as prompts. So your mentor might say, look, we've been doing each week, but week 6 is not as relevant. Let's spend the whole hour focusing on interview skills. And that's totally okay. But you can also access this on your own. Some of these content, you don't even need to talk through with a mentor. Just by reading the article, you'll kind of be upskilled in particularly like the modern career path and zigzagging through careers, or getting used to an online or hybrid workforce. There's a lot of great content in there, and you'll be able to access that, not just for the 10 weeks, but you'll always have access to that. So you'll always have your community accounts. We won't delete it or move it. You'll be able to come back to that at later stages in your career to continue looking at that. So that's what that will look like. You'll be provided access to that tomorrow, and you'll be able to go there. If there's any questions, you can either reply to the email that I send you, and I'll be sending an email every single week, checking in, updating you, saying, hey, we've just run our mentor workshop. You'll be matched this week. Hey, you've been matched. Here's your mentor. And then each week we'll be saying, okay, this week is week 1, induction and e-learning. Make sure you look at this. Week 2, we're looking at values today. Here's some tips. So I'll be providing weekly updates. It'll always have the link. So if you ever lose the browser, you'll just be able to check the email for the week and jump straight back into the platform. You can either reply to that email, or you can see this little question mark. You'll have that there. You can chat to the support team, which is just myself and Siobhan, but we'll be able to answer those questions, anything that comes through. Amazing. Okay. That's it for the platform. We'll also use it for volunteering, but we have another session next week when we're really going to deep dive into volunteering. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that next week. But today we get to hear from Alex and AVI. They don't just provide educational content around mentoring, they also provide it around volunteering. So as part of this experience, you will be volunteering with a not-for-profit based in Parramatta. And there's like here you can just see there's a couple of different ways to do that. So there's role-based or project-based. So you might have to be coming in and supporting, or they might have a specific event or project that they're working on. There's lots of ways to support not-for-profits that will increase your skills, your soft skills, your communication, working in a team environment, as well as just making an impact in the Parramatta community. We're really excited with these not-for-profits. We've been enjoyed working with them and figuring out these volunteering experiences for you all. So there's many ways to help, but I'm going to throw over to Alex, who's going to do a little bit of education around this space. I'm going to stop sharing my slides as well.
Thanks, Will. All right, so give me a sec. I'll just share my screen. Oh, Siobhan, I think you need to allow me to share, please. Here we go. Thank you. Okay, so we want to start with you by a little activity and get your pick your brain around international development, volunteering in a domestic context. And so what AVI does is that we send Australian volunteers through across the world, particularly in Asia Pacific, and we send hundreds of volunteers a year. And we just wanted to bring some aspects of volunteering with you today, and just get you to think about what volunteering means, what best practices are before you start engaging with your not-for-profit. So if you can just go on to WooClub and put in the code, so PTE 0922, and then you should be on WooClub. So you can do that online or on your mobile, whatever works best for you. Just wait for a few minutes. What's our magic number, Will? Is it 10?
We have 16.
16. Oh, okay. So we'll just wait a few minutes. We've got 8 people on at the moment.
Are you able to put that in the chat?
Yes, sure.
So we can just click on the link and then open it. Yep. Thanks.
How do I do that? Can I copy this link? Okay, give me a moment. I might just get the link from somewhere else.
Alex, we'll just type it in for you. You can just keep sharing the screen. Yeah, Siobhan's just sent it in the chat.
Oh, easy. You're a star. So 12, we're getting there. A few more people. All right, 2 more, 1 more. Okay, I'll move on to the next page, maybe. Okay, so the first, what the question is actually sharing your thoughts. It's just a free text answers around what do you think makes for good volunteering practices and sustainable development. So it can be just a couple of words, just share whatever comes to your mind when you think about that. Empathy, making an impact. Transparency, that's a really good one. Understanding, passion. Sustainable. listening to others. I think there's a trend around empathy and listening to others and being transparent or understanding. Willingness to learn and support, strengthening your employment opportunity, dedication, accountability, honesty, openness, asking people what they want. I like this one, we'll come back to it. Being genuine. What else? Okay, I think that's a good start. So I'm not going to comment on it just yet. We'll get back to your answers in a minute. Before we discuss your thoughts, I'm just going to play a short video. The video you'll watch is in the context of international development. However, the same principles apply to volunteering, no matter where it is. So it applies to volunteering domestically here in Australia. So when you're watching the video, try to think about how similar situations could occur locally when you're volunteering with your not-for-profit, and what sort of steps or decisions or action could be taken to prevent this to happen. So I'm going to start the video and let you think about it.
Literally millions of lives have been changed all throughout the world through one-for-one programs, with shoes and with glasses. But here at Tim's, we're on the lookout for what's next in the world of one-for-one.
And what we found is that in rural parts of Africa, there's this one need that most people don't even know about. And we have a solution.
Which is why we're excited to announce today the next chapter in our one-for-one line. Ready? Smoothie machines. It's so simple. You buy one $600 smoothie machine, someone in Africa gets a $600 smoothie machine.
Who doesn't have $600 lying around?
Right off the bat, they may not understand how much they need this product, but give it a little bit of time, and I think that they're clearly going to see how much use they get out of this every day.
They'll figure it out.
We don't go into a community without knowing exactly what their needs are.
Out of the hundreds of smoothie franchises available, we found that in rural Africa, there are exactly 0.
Just they lit up when they saw this smoothie machine, And I just felt like we brought them something so important that they'll cherish forever.
Never forget how this thing started. Trip and I were on a mission trip over in Africa, and we were on a break during one of the projects we were doing, and I asked the lady, I said, "Hey, where can I get a smoothie?" And she said, I'll never forget it. She said, "What's a smoothie?" And I think we knew at that moment what our calling was. I dare you to move, dare you to breathe.
Once you've given them these smoothie machines, all that is left is for us to find a way to give them milk, ice, and fresh fruit.
If they can make ice.
Yeah, it's just water. And most people in Africa have water, right? Right? And we're not stopping here. Pretty soon, Tim's is going to be releasing one-for-one ab rockers.
One-for-one iPhone car chargers.
One-for-one Thomas Kincaid paintings.
And one-for-one Pittsburgh Pirates season tickets.
So obviously, we're very excited about this new opportunity. We feel like together, we could revolutionize Africa one wild berry mango splash at a time.
It's our hope that you join with us and help us make this year the year that we blend out poverty once and for all.
All right. So just before we get back to your answers to what makes for good volunteering and best practice, I just wanted to highlight that there's a number of organizations that have set out standards for and best practice for international, for volunteering for development, international or domestic. So some of them are, so DFAT, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, have some clearly set out standards that all DFAT funded programs have to comply with, for instance. Forum is another one that they've worked with AVI and other volunteer sending organizations across the world to create a set of standards that can be applied globally. There's ACFID, which is the Australian Council for International Development, that have really high standards as well. So you can go and have a look at these standards that can give you an idea of what to keep in mind when you start volunteering. And really these principles are evidence-based, and they cover different aspects of volunteering, from design, implementation, and management of volunteering programs. And the aim of these standards is really to support organizations to improve their practice and to help them become more impactful and more responsible. So these standards are here really to ensure that there's no harm done when volunteering in any context, that the design of these programs is done in partnership with local communities, that they actually respond to community needs, that all community members and volunteers are safe, are trained, that the intended impact of programs is identified before and tracked throughout the program. So there's monitoring and evaluation going on, and that volunteers are fully prepared and supported when they volunteer. So now if we consider these principles, the video and your initial response, are some of you willing to share your thoughts on what is good volunteering best practice, and what you, based on what you responded in the Whoop Lab and what you noticed in the video, what do you think is critical?
We take into consideration their actual needs and not our perceived or our perception of their needs. Absolutely.
I think that's a fundamental one, that any volunteering program is what we call at AVI locally driven. So the needs are coming from the communities you're working with. No one should be coming to an organization and saying, oh, I think you should be doing this because that's what you need, clearly. Well, no, they know what they need, and they know best. So any good volunteering program should be locally led. And that's something that you, when you're joining an organization, you don't necessarily have control over that. However, that's something that you can have in the back of your mind, so that when you're meeting your partner organizations, you can quickly assess whether or not you think their actions or their programs are locally led, and you can question it, and you can ask questions about how do you define your program needs, and who is responsible for ensuring that the objectives are achieved, and who is monitoring and evaluating programs. So that's things you can have in the back of your head when you're meeting with partner organizations, when you're doing some research about what they do and their programs, and what your role is going to be as a volunteer. Anything else that you think? I think there was a lot of listening to people, being empathic, that came up in the Whoop Lab as well. And I can just come back to the Whoop Lab screen. Any thoughts on that, or on any other responses that you shared? I think respect and open-mindedness, honestly, listening to other, were things that came up. I think it is linked to locally led programs, and understanding that communities are best placed to decide what are their greatest needs. But volunteering is really same as mentoring. It's being open. It's about listening to people. It's about maybe sometimes being vulnerable, so that you are more open to learning from others and getting the most of your volunteering experience. And it's not about coming as an expert. It's really a two-way street. It's an opportunity for you to grow as a student, to develop new skills, both soft skills and skills that are in relation to your field of study. But it's also an opportunity to learn from people and their ways of life and their own experience, etc. So if you approach volunteering in a humble way, I think that's when you make the most of it. Being dedicated and passionate, and obviously, I think that makes you greater at anything you do, not just volunteering. If you're passionate about what you're doing, I think you're bringing a lot more to the table than if you're doing something reluctantly. Having an impact and sustainable was also mentioned in your responses, which is great. I think understanding the programs you're working on from a longer term perspective and questioning what is going to be the impact of this initiative I'm supporting as a volunteer is important. Ideally, sustainable practices in volunteering means that we are supporting volunteering programs that have a long-term impact for the communities they are helping, not just unless you're working in humanitarian aid, where it is the relief of an immediate need, then that's a different story. But if you're working on development work with a particular not-for-profit, then it's potentially a long-term impact. So having that in mind is also helping you understand that your time as a volunteer might be for just a few hours, a few weeks, maybe, as we'll mention, they might be event-based. So you're not going to necessarily see the results of your participation as a volunteer. However, you'll be part of a longer-term sustainable outcome for that partner organization. So that's also what it is to be a volunteer. You don't necessarily see the fruits of your engagement as a volunteer immediately because you're supporting longer-term goals. All right, so I'll just move on to the next slide. So I don't know if some of you have heard about the Sidekick Manifesto, but I just wanted to highlight it here and encourage you to go and have a look at their website. So really, the Sidekick Manifesto is a great resource that can help you in your reflection as you prepare for volunteering. Essentially, it's a list of the mistakes that have been made over the years in the fight against poverty. So it focuses on poverty, but again, it's applicable to a lot of other circumstances in the development space. So I'm just going to read you a couple of words that I've taken out the manifesto. So doing good is not easy, and in some cases, doing good is not good. Steps taken to end global poverty have included mission trips, orphanage tours, or buying a pair of Tom's shoes. At their best, these steps do not work. At their worst, they create dependency, erode dignity, and crowd out local leaders who are in better position to end their own poverty. Our task, meaning as volunteers, is to agitate for change in the rules that perpetuate poverty, rules that our society and our politicians have had a hand in creating and maintaining. So the Tom's example in that story is a really good example. So if you're buying Tom's shoes, or it's just an example, there's a lot of one-for-one initiatives out there. But if you're buying Tom's shoes because you think you're contributing to ending poverty, well, sorry to tell you, that's not the case. At best, you might give a pair of shoes to someone who do or don't need them. That's really questionable. But if you're buying Tom's shoes because you like them and in the back end there's somebody going somewhere, yeah, okay, that's probably fine. But we need to get away from this sort of savior vision that we have of in the Western world of volunteering. In the fight against poverty, in the international development world, being a volunteer is accepting to be a sidekick. So that's all the manifesto is about. So you can go on their website, have a read through the resources. You can read more about the Tom's experience, and they've sort of set up that one-for-one model. And they quickly realized, or they didn't, but some researchers realized that when they were handing over Tom's shoes, most of the time they reappeared on the local markets because people didn't need shoes. They actually needed money, or they needed other resources, but not shoes. They just assumed that it would be something that this community needed as a priority, and it wasn't. So just go on the Sidekick Manifesto, read through the resources, and you can take the pledge. So you can just commit to follow volunteering best practice. So it's a really good and easily accessible resource to read to get you to think about your volunteering experience. So another thing I wanted to focus on is the locally led that you raised. So it's another important aspect to consider when you start volunteering. And even though it's generally presented in the context of international development, it can be transposed here in Australia when you work with a not-for-profit who is doing some work with a particular community. Part of your responsibility is to ensure that the organization and the programs or projects you are working on are community-led, that the people who are benefiting from these initiatives and who are directly impacted by the programs are the ones who are making decisions. Because ultimately, they are the ones for whom these programs will have consequences, and we're hoping these are positive consequences. But that's your responsibility as a volunteer to make sure that is the case. Then something that I wanted to raise as well with you is inclusion. So when you participating in any sort of programs, projects, initiatives, you have the possibility to include or exclude people. Quite often it's an unconscious bias that you need to acknowledge and fight against. But these are some questions that you can ask yourself when you're working as a volunteer, particularly when it's event-based, to think about inclusive practices. So with every activity, every task, just think about who is not at the table. Why? How can we get them around the table? And how can we do that? So in any activity that you undertake as a volunteer, just have that in the back of your mind and try to think about all of the people that you're trying to reach. How are you going to reach them? Does this leave people out who could benefit from that project or that event? How can you get them to participate? So with that in mind, here are two case studies. So the first one is you're volunteering for a not-for-profit, and this organization is planning to organize a community event around STEM education for girls. They're proposing that the event occurs at 5 p.m. local time, which is usually the out of office, out of school time. So I want you to think about the challenges that it might pose and who might not be able to attend as a consequence of this decision to run that event at that time. Why? How would that affect the project outcomes? And what simple change can you propose to work around this and include more participants? The second case study is you're working with an LGBTIQ advocacy organizations, and you're also working with a corporate organization who's trying to create a more inclusive and safe space for their employees. So I want you to think about the different aspects of their workplace policies they could work on to achieve on this objective of being a more inclusive workspace for LGBTIQ employees. So I'll give you a few minutes and then we can just discuss your findings together. All right. Does anyone have some thoughts to share? Maybe we'll start with the first case study. So are there any, why do you think this might be counterproductive for your projects and that might actually exclude people that you're trying to reach out to? Yeah,
Well,
Matt. Oh, sorry.
Go, Matt.
Matt, I don't think we can hear you. might have a sound issue. Well, Ali, maybe we go back to you.
Some of the girls might have after school jobs, or they might not be able to actually get to the venue. So perhaps pairing with the local school so they can do it during school hours might be able to mean more girls would be included.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Any other, so that's a STEM event around for little girls. Who else do you think you would like to attend an event like that around that particular topic? Other community members, who would you think would be good to have? Anyone? Kaya, maybe? Did you want to?
Hi, yeah. I just wanted to say you could have current students or people with experience to come and share with the girls.
Yeah, great idea. That's a really good way to actually, attract people and make it really practical. And I think you would have like community projects like that. You're not only trying to impact the little girls, but also who is making decisions on behalf of these little girls?
Parents.
Their parents. And at 5 p.m. on a school day during the week, a lot of parents might be at work or might just be finishing work, and they might not be able to come. That's the people you want to be there as well, because ultimately, these young girls might not be yet able to make decisions for themselves. And so you also want to influence other community members like parents. So maybe finding, like doing that on a, I don't know, Saturday morning, or finding another opportunity a bit later than that, or like whatever it can be to work around maybe the 5 p.m. pickup rush and end of work. It is not ideal. So just thinking about all of the community members you want to include, and what are their constraints and how you can include them. In the second case studies, it's more around aspects of a workplace that you would recommend these corporate organizations could work on to become more inclusive. And you might think about your university as an example, like what do they do to be a more inclusive space for LGBTIQ people? Anyone?
Organize training programs.
Yeah, that's a great way to increase awareness amongst other employees.
Have days to have events to promote those activities for LGBTQ.
Yeah, that's right. Following special days or celebration days or events that are important in advocating for LGBTIQ rights. It can take a lot of form. So I think as a volunteer, you really need to try and put yourself in all the program participants' shoes to really think about how inclusive your program is and what can be done, what suggestion you could make to your partner organizations in what they're already doing to try and achieve a more inclusive program. So that's also part of your role as volunteer. So that's really it for me today. There was just some high-level thinking to get you started and get you to prepare yourself for your volunteering experience, giving you some resources. We'll say that the recording of today's session will be on the community platform, so you will have access to all of the links should you wish to go and have a look at the Sidekick Manifesto, for example. So I really recommend that you do some research, reading around volunteering best practice, and think about what's important so that you're fully prepared when you're starting your volunteering journey. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, Alex. We hope this was a helpful session, kind of learning about being a good mentee and being a volunteer that is not just there to fulfill your own desires to be a helpful person, but to actually create an impact. And it's really interesting because this concept was initially developed for international development, international volunteering. But you look at all of the principles that underpin it, and it applies directly, I think, to what we're doing in Parramatta, to what we're doing with these not-for-profits as we volunteer here. So that's why we thought, do we need to adjust this content for a local program? Actually, no. Like, I think looking at it in that light helps us think as we progress so through this program, keep those principles close and continue to think about that. And I hope it informs you if any of you are interested in volunteering internationally in the future. AVI are a great organization. You can check them out and potentially volunteer through them in the future. I think I'm going to mute you now. So much power. Amazing. So let me just quickly chat about that volunteering experience. If you could, in the chat, just put in whether you could volunteer in Parramatta in person, or if you'd have to be volunteering remote. You actually couldn't make it to Parramatta for any kind of one-off or even one-off volunteering experience. So if you could put in the chat Parramatta or remote. There will be a few different in-person opportunities. So if you can even make it to Parramatta just once, then that would be amazing. If you can't even do that, just let us know. It has to be remote. There are a few different options there, but thank you so much. We'll be able to go to our not-for-profits and make sure that we have the right opportunities prepared for you. Thank you so much as they come in. So we'll be running a session next Tuesday. You would have seen that in your registration form as you registered for this session. We were considering running that hybrid, but I think many of you will only be able to make it remotely. So we're just going to run a Zoom session. So it'll only be on Zoom, and we'll be talking about the volunteering there. So next Tuesday, we're going to be on Zoom at the same time next Tuesday. And we'll actually be inviting our not-for-profits to jump in on the Zoom as well. So similar to today, it is scheduled for an hour and a half. We'll only have about 15-20 minutes of time together as a large group. We'll review some of the topics we covered today and talk about what their volunteering experiences will look like. But the goal for next week will be for you to hear from the not-for-profits about what they're doing in the community in general and who they are. And then you'll actually get a chance to hear about what their volunteering experiences available are. So you'll actually next Tuesday be able to hear from the not-for-profits and actually choose your volunteering experience. So these will be done in at least groups of 2 up to about a group size of 4. That's probably the max we'll have. And there'll be, like I said, there'll be a range of types of volunteering opportunities between remotes and in person, and between those, they might look a bit different. So, for example, some of our in-person ones, you would literally be going to a community-based event in Parramatta. They'll be at a park on the weekends, reaching out to the community with sausage sizzles and educational events. So there's some really exciting ones like that, all the way through to you might be helping them design some surveys to engage with the community, or those kind of things. So there's a range of opportunities, and next Tuesday, completely online, you'll be choosing a volunteering experience yourself. So thanks so much for the questions coming through. I want you to think about this program as kind of 2 parallel paths. So you'll be doing mentoring as well as the volunteering. So you'll be provided with a mentor next week, and you'll have 10 weeks of sessions to go through with them. Alongside that, you'll be choosing a volunteering experience and being able to volunteer for an organization. So you'll be doing those at the same time, and they're not necessarily linked. So your mentor won't be jumping in and volunteering with you, but they'll be able to provide some advice. If you're not sure how to progress with your project, or, hey, like, can you tell me if this is good before I submit it to the not-for-profit? They're able to provide mentoring about your volunteering experience as well. And they know that you're volunteering, so they'll be able to speak into that. You're going to be doing both. In terms of mentors, they won't necessarily be in your field of study. We do We do occasionally make that link if possible. But the focus of the program is not to provide you with an internship or industry experience. So that's not our goal, to match you with an industry expert in your industry to get you some experience or to potentially open your network there. We're hoping to provide you with career advice and someone who doesn't have an agenda or something that they want you to do out of it. They're there to chat to you about where your career path is going, how to prepare yourself for that, what kind of soft skills you want to be developing, and really just talk to you about how's your pathway to employment going to begin, or for those who started, how are you going to get settled in, and where are your next steps. So a mentor, regardless of what field they're in, will be able to do that. That's the goal of the program, and you'll see that in the weekly content as well. I'm just quickly looking through the questions. Have I missed any, Siobhan?
Did that kind of answer your question, Matt? Like, we'll match it up, not necessarily based on your course, but based on like, because all the mentors are pretty good.
All the mentors are great. It'll be one-on-one mentoring. So you might volunteer in groups, but you won't be mentoring in groups. You'll each have a personal mentor.
You can let them know your goals, and then you can do it so it's catered for you.
Yeah, so that's why, you'll be developing your goals specifically with your mentor. Any other questions? I feel like I went rapid fire, like Q&A just then.
Cool burger story.
Oh, okay. My final parting advice for your mentoring. We'll talk a little bit about the volunteering, like I said, next week. So there's a lot to look forward to. Final parting advice, many of you are Sydney-based and many of our mentors are Sydney-based. We see amazing connections being made out of this. So don't treat your mentor formally and professionally, but be open and vulnerable and get to know your mentor. We've seen mentors and mentees become friends or really have a great relationship where they're actually sharing in life and helping each other make those decisions and career paths. We've seen instances where at the end of the program, they catch up for a burger and have lunch together. Most of the mentoring can be done online. It's designed to be done online, but if it's convenient, if they're located in Sydney or nearby, you can actually meet up with them in person as well, if you're comfortable. Make sure that you let them know if that's something that you're interested in, because we see some amazing relationships come out of it. And like I said, it's how much you give is directly impacts how much you get out of those mentoring relationships.
Yeah, like before, two mentor and mentee went for burgers and beers. And then another one, they went on like a great search through Sydney for the best chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah, so their meetings are based around finding the best chocolate chip cookie in Sydney. So we have a bunch of these mentoring relationships, and not all of them will be like that. Many will be completely online, but you'll be able to kind of be vulnerable, open up your life and help. The more you give them, the more they'll be able to speak into that and provide advice. Any more questions, feel free to reply to our emails. I know we blocked out an hour and a half, but everyone was super on time. Everyone was here. It was amazing. We'll be sharing that recording, like I said, if you want to watch it back. Thank you so much, Alex, for your presentation today. I laugh every time I watch that Tim's video. I don't know, I just couldn't hold it together. It's just so... hits the nail on the head. But thank you so much for attending today. We're really looking forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Similarly compulsory, just because it's such an important session to meet your not-for-profit and start volunteering. The catalyst, the start is always the most important part of those relationships. So come next week with your calendar, knowing what you're doing over the next few weeks. Hopefully we'll be booking in meetings and things like that. We want it to be a practical session where you can actually figure out how to get started. But thank you so much for coming. We're really looking forward to working with you all. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Go on. Hey, Al, did you have a question as people jump out?
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, before the session next week, will you send us a link or a list of the mentors and the program so we could maybe have a look before we attend on Tuesday? or is it all going to be there on Tuesday next week?
So yes, we'll be providing the program or the volunteering opportunities in the session. So we'll actually, as a whole group, run through each of them together. So we'll just provide that on the day.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll send the email with your mentoring link and to access the platform tomorrow. But in terms of the actual program and getting started, that we'll do that together next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your interaction.